Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, the Education Coordinator for Marlene's Market and Deli. Tonight's special guest that we have with us is Lisha Song. She is a licensed mental health counselor, intuitive trauma therapist, and owner of Sacred Healing Place located here in Tacoma, Washington, and recently a a book author of a wonderful book called Love What Hurts. And we are so grateful to have her with us this evening, speaking on the topic of boundaries for overall health. Thank you so much, Lisha, for being here with us.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you everybody for joining me on this beautiful Pacific Northwest afternoon. I'm surprised you're here, but I'm grateful because I know it's beautiful outside, so that looks very alluring. So how I'm going to format tonight's class is, there'll be like a talk with some questions and hopefully a little bit of interaction the first half of the class, maybe about 20 to 30 minutes. And then the last 20 or 30 minutes, I'm going to guide you through a meditative exercise. So anyways, let's get started. Boundaries for overall health. So in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month and Women's Health Month this month, I'm probably going to be talking more about women and boundaries, but really this information would resonate with anybody who is boundary challenged. You feel guilty, you feel bad by establishing certain boundaries. And I want to help you, bypass that. I want to help you, well, maybe not bypass it, but get to the root of the why. Why do you feel guilty? Why do we feel obligated? Why do we keep giving, over giving, and overdoing? So let's proceed. So this is me. This is my information as Elizabeth did her lovely introduction. I'm a trauma therapist here, intuitive trauma therapist here in Tacoma, Sacred Healing Place. Here's my contact info, and I'll put this slide up at the end of class too. All right. You probably see my notes on the side. We couldn't figure out how to hide the notes, so don't worry about that. The biology of human beings cannot be separated from their psychological and social environments. As written in the book, When the Body Says No, this lovely book right here, written by Dr. Gabor Mate. This was published in 2003. That's 20 years ago. But the information in here is still relevant today. Exploring the stress-disease connection. So that's what we're going to explore a little bit tonight. People usually think of boundaries as just a mental health act of self-care, but really boundaries will help you live longer. Because we are psychosocial biological creatures. I don't even know if that's a real word, but let's just make it a real word. Psychosocial biological creatures, because that's who we are as human beings. Even though we've been conditioned to believe that we can separate our minds, our heads, right, from the rest of our body. And that is just not true, because emotions give off chemicals in the nervous system. And our emotions directly impact our hormones, and our hormones can directly impact wellness and disease. Stress is a powerful modulator of hormonal function. So it's very cyclical. It's this trickle-down effect. Whatever we feel, whatever emotions we're feeling, it's affecting our nervous system, it's affecting our hormones, and the hormones impact our health. Our environments also directly impact our emotions. And according to Dr. Mate's research, most diseases have little or nothing to do with genetics. It's really epigenetics is what researchers are looking at for disease cause and correlation. Okay, so what is epigenetics? Epigenetics is the study of how your behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way your genes work. Okay, epigenetics is the study of how your behaviors and your environment can cause the changes that affect the way your genes work. So for example, in the early 1900s, the ratio of male to female occurrences of rheumatoid arthritis was 1-to-1. Today, women get rheumatoid arthritis 3 to 4 times as much as men. And according to Dr. Mate, this has nothing to do with genetics because genetics don't change that dramatically over such a short period of time. So let's look at the environment of what has changed for women since the 1900s. Well, something pretty big, the feminist movement. And I love the feminist movement, and I appreciate and I give homage to those women and those men who fought for us and fought for freedom of choice and equality and equanimity. So I love it. But unfortunately, what happened with those women is not only did they have a full-time job at home as mothers and wives, they now had a full-time job outside the home. So instead of giving up the household management, they just kept going with it and then got a job outside the home. So what does that mean? Extra stress, no time for self-care. So that would be my theory as to why more women these days are getting chronic illnesses like rheumatoid arthritis. And the other big stressor for women, for a lot of women, I'm talking in general, of course, there are always exceptions to every rule, but a lot of women who are managing entire households of mammals and appliances, right? They also become the emotional shock absorbers for their family members. They're making sure that everybody is doing okay, that there's peace between the siblings or peace between the other adult and the siblings and the kids, and they're trying to manage everybody else's feelings. This isn't every woman, right? But the women who tend to not have good boundaries, they're trying to rescue or appease. So they become the emotional shock absorbers, in addition to working with potentially 2 full-time jobs, one inside the home and one outside the home. And all this overworking and all this overdoing and trying to be responsible for how other people feel, that is making us sick, ladies. It's making us sick. And that's why we have to develop, establish, and practice healthy boundaries. Okay, we have 7 types of boundaries here. I just got this from psychcentral.com, this list here. And I'm just going to go through and describe each type of boundary. And I'll ask for questions at the end of this slide. So physical boundary, that is the boundary that protects your right to be touched or not be touched, and to meet your physical needs such as resting or eating. It clearly defines that your body and personal space belong to you. The sexual boundary, this one's probably a little more obvious. This is the boundary that protects your right to consent, to ask for what you like sexually, and to honesty about your partner's sexual history. It defines what kind of sexual touch and intimacy you want, how often, when, where, and with whom. The emotional mental boundary, these boundaries protect your right to have your own feelings and thoughts, and to not have your feelings criticized or invalidated, plus not to take care of other people's feelings. Emotional boundaries differentiate your feelings from other people's feelings. So you're just accountable for your own feelings, but you're not responsible for how other people feel. And that one's a tough one for us ladies. Spiritual religious boundary. This boundary is letting you have you have the right to believe what you want to believe spiritually, and how you want to practice that belief, how you want to practice your spiritual rituals and traditions that align with your soul. And that could be very different from the rest of your family or, your closest friends. It could be going to church, not going to church, praying, not praying, meditating alone, meditating in a group setting. So your religious freedoms, spiritual and religious freedoms. The financial and material boundary, this protects your right to your finances and possessions, your right to spend your money as you choose, and to not give or loan your money or possessions if you don't want to, and your right to be paid by an employer as agreed. Your time boundary. This protects how you spend your time. These boundaries protect you from agreeing to do things you don't want to do, having people waste your time, and being overworked. The final boundary type are the non-negotiables. So these boundaries are deal breakers. These are pretty serious. Things that you absolutely must have in order to feel safe. So examples might include substance abuse, fidelity in a relationship, safety issues, or a life-threatening health issue. So those are the 7 types of boundaries. Are there any questions so far about these boundaries or anything else I've said so far? No questions, Elizabeth, in the chat box?
No, none that I
Okay.
can see. Yeah.
Okay. On to the next slide. This is what life looks like without healthy boundaries. You never feel like you're enough. Or maybe you overshare personal information with untrustworthy people, hoping that they'll come through for you. But they never do. And they break your trust over and over again. You start to feel resentful. Nobody appreciates all that you do. You don't know where you end and others begin. Hello, codependency. You don't know where you end and others begin. So your identity is tied up in somebody else's identity. You feel fatigued or exhausted most days. And you frequently get sick. Any questions about any of this? All right. When the body says no, okay, guys, ladies, I've got a couple of studies I want to share with you about female monkeys. So researchers manipulated dominance relationships in groups of female monkeys. Established dominant patterns were broken up. Those who were used to being dominant were forced into subordination, which subordinate ones were enabled to achieve dominant status. And the dominant female monkeys produced less cortisol than the subordinates. Okay, we know that when you know about cortisol, when we feel stressed out, chronically stressed out, cortisol levels shoot up. That's a hormone, right? And then that really affects the rest of your endocrine system. And it's hard to heal, and it's hard to like lose weight. It's hard to feel rested when cortisol levels are high. So this monkey study is quite interesting. What else did they find? Yeah, so the dominant female monkeys produced less cortisol than the subordinate monkeys. And the dominant monkeys menstruated regularly and produced higher levels of progesterone before ovulation. The subordinate monkeys ovulated less often and more frequently had impaired menstrual cycles. And then they flipped the groups around again, and they made those subordinate monkeys, they allowed them to become dominant, and then the dominant monkeys were forced into subordination, and they tested those cortisol levels again, and the same thing happened. The dominant monkeys had less cortisol levels and healthier menstrual cycles than the subordinate monkeys. So what does that mean? We need to say no more often, right? We need to express our truth more often and not hide and submit so much. Cancers of female gynecological organs are hormone related. And in another study with healthy women who had an abnormal pap smear during a routine exam, researchers were able to predict with 75% accuracy which individuals had early cancer simply by administering a questionnaire which differentiated between various emotional states. They found that cancer was most apt to occur in those women with a helpless prone personality type, or some sense of helpless frustration which could not be resolved in the preceding 6 months. All right, helpless prone personality type. Let's talk about personality types and chronic illness. Number 1. So according to Dr. Mate, this was in an interview with Psychology Today. These are the personality types that tend to get chronic illnesses. Number 1, automatic and compulsive concern for the emotional needs of others while ignoring one's own needs. Number 2, rigid identification with social role, duty, and responsibility. So we've all been conditioned, right, by our families, by church, by the larger culture at hand, at what is expected of us as a woman, as a female, and what we're supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do. Number 3, overdriven, externally focused, hyper responsibility based on the conviction that one must justify one's existence by doing and giving. So I don't have any self-worth unless I'm constantly doing and giving to others. That's, that's number 3 in a nutshell. This is the person maybe at a party, maybe they're hosting the party and they never sit down. They're constantly running around, busy, never really present for the people who've attended their party, right? Because they don't actually feel comfortable sitting with someone at a party and really, having a good conversation with them. They like the idea maybe of a party and they want to have people over, but they're busy, never sitting down, never relaxing, always in the kitchen or always getting stuff for other people. I think we know folks like that, or maybe we've been in that role ourselves. Number 4, repression of healthy self-protective anger. So an example of, protective anger is getting upset with someone who consistently cancels on you, right? And a healthy boundary would be to have a talk with them. Like, if you continue to cancel on me when we make plans, then I'm not going to really want to make plans with you. So can you stop that behavior, change it somehow? It's a disrespect of a boundary. Number 5, harboring and compulsively acting out 2 beliefs. I am responsible for how other people feel, and I must never disappoint anyone. So this can tie back into number 2 with that rigid identification with a particular social role, duty, or responsibility. I am responsible for how everyone else feels, and I can't upset or disappoint anybody, right? Because what is the ultimate fear? If you go down that rabbit hole, if I do upset or disappoint people, what's the ultimate irrational fear? That they'll reject me or leave me, that they won't accept me. So that's why I have to keep giving and doing and working to justify my existence, to justify my worth. So is any of this so far resonating with people? Yes, Becky. And I can't really see anybody else, but maybe oh yeah.
I didn't know I was muted. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions so far? All right, let's keep going. So, why is setting boundaries so difficult? Right? This is really what we need to get to, because I can talk about all the boundaries that you need to establish all day long, and you will just, log off and go, well, that's nice, but I don't know how to do that. But anyways, why is setting boundaries so difficult? Well, because of the old conditioning of gender roles. Good girls submit, good girls are quiet and nice, and they obey. Good boys assert. They assert themselves. And it's okay if boys are aggressive. It's okay if boys are loud. But really, nobody is allowed to express painful feelings, boys or girls. Boys aren't allowed to cry or show vulnerability. And girls, they're not allowed to access their anger or, speak up for themselves. So this is the old cultural conditioning. It's still happening today. I think with younger generations coming up, it's starting to dissipate, just starting. We're still far from where we need to be, but we are like loosening our grips. The culture at hand is loosening its grips of this old conditioning of gender roles, right? Because it does harm. It harms girls, but it harms boys when we don't allow boys their full expression of all their emotions and their opinions and everything, right? As much as it harms girls. The other reason why it's so hard to set boundaries is the accolades that we receive from overworking, over-volunteering, overdoing. Those accolades, they feed our ego. And if we have an ego that believes we are not worthy unless somebody tells us we're worthy, then we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep overworking and over-volunteering and overdoing because it's all we have, right? So, am I good enough? How to heal from overdoing-itis. We have to start saying no. And we don't have to do it in a bitchy way, right? And we don't have to over-explain our no. But we have to start saying no to even our loved ones, even the ones who mean well. And we have to start saying yes to self-care. But I can't, but I don't know how. But they need me. Boy, nothing gets an empath or an empathetic person quicker than, but I need you. I need your help. And sometimes people use that against us as a manipulative tool, but sometimes they really do need us. And in a true, critical or urgent situation that doesn't happen that often, of course, we would go to somebody's aid and help them. But you know, but that's not who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about, kind of the chronic takers, right? The energy vampires in our lives, right? They just keep taking and taking and taking, and they never reciprocate. Isn't that funny? They never reciprocate. If you go to them and you ask them for help or a favor, they're not available, they're too busy. And, you know, how could you be so selfish to just be thinking of yourself right now as if you're the only one who exists on the planet? You know, all that manipulation, you recognize it. But. So I have these little cat butts up here, right? I was just trying to be cute, but we can't. So I get it. It is real. We can talk about it all day, but we have to get to the origin. We have to access that part of us that feels so obligated to overdoing itis. And I want to now I want to get any questions so far, any comments, and then we'll go into the guided meditative exercise to try and get to the bottom of our obligatory status. So are there any questions, any comments so far? Is anybody not agreeing with what I'm saying? Are they confused? Are you confused at all?
I really enjoy your overdoing itis, because it is an inflammation. It's an ache on our souls sometimes, and we don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that you said that it's an inflammation. That is what itis, anything that ends in itis is an inflammation. And when I wrote that word, I wasn't thinking of inflammation. So I like that, Elizabeth. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Oh, yes. Do you have any polite ways to say no? That's a great question, Christina. Thank you.
That is a great question. And it depends on the situation, right? It can simply mean, so us women, we tend to over explain and justify our no answers. Well, no, because, you know, Billy is sick at home and I have to stay at home because my husband's working tonight and blah, blah, blah. But if you notice, when men say no, in general, there's exceptions, but in general, when men say no, they just go, no, I can't. Or no, I don't want to, which sometimes can feel, it can feel rude at times, but usually men would say like, no, I can't make that work. And really, what is wrong with us women sort of taking that on? It doesn't have to be, so it's really about your delivery, your tone, right? If you say, no, I'm just too stressed out. Okay. We get it, Lisha. Geez, calm down. All right. But if you just, if I just respond with, no, I'm sorry, that's not going to work for me. Or just, no, I can't. And if they ask why, you can say, well, I've got some other things going on. So does that answer your question? Or do you have a specific situation that you want to learn how to say no to?
She did agree with you. She said, so true. And I'm waiting to see if she had she said, thank you. Yes, I like the firm boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question, or I'm sorry, should it be in chat?
Oh no, that's fabulous. Please.
Great. I'm actually driving, so I've been just listening. So typing is not a great idea, even though I'm at a stoplight. I have a situation that actually inspired me to join this. I have a friend who lives with me who has not done a very good job of tidying up after themselves or their pet. And I can usually tolerate it. And on days when this friend has really bad shoulder pain or something else, totally understand. Obviously, that's not a day for it. But it seems like there's a constant thing that prevents them from just cleaning up. They had a long day at work. Their partner didn't message them for 2 days. Having a bad day, get off my back. And I have to say, hey, can you clean up? Hey, can you clean up? One time their dog had ripped apart their toy and left puffs, like little stuff all over the floor. I asked, floor is still covered with it, only cleans it up when I roll out the vacuum, show it to them and say, please vacuum the floor, and then I leave. I came back and it was clean, but the level of effort I have to invest in basically managing the house, and this is a friend who is the same age as me, we're both adults. We got into a bit of a fight recently, kind of involving this, and I need to explain to this person that it has to stop, but I'm also realizing at the same time, this friend kind of resents me having to mother them without realizing that there are things that kind of lead into it, and they get kind of helpless and confused when I don't give them specific instructions. So without getting into more details, how do I deal with this without turning into an asshole? Because I am so fed up with it.
Okay, so is this a situation where they have to live with you?
No, and here's the thing that I feel like I need to explain them. The first is that I own my home and they rent a room from me, but the rent rate that I charge them is exceptionally low. I even help them take care of their dogs and go on walks on days when I work from home and this person's dog is there. So I'm kind of resentful as well that I want them to take advantage of the cheap rent to catch up on their own bills, which has been helping, but I don't want them to take advantage of me or take me for granted. And there's many ways that they have just very, very impulsive behaviors, often inconsiderate decisions. I understand that they have ADHD and that leads to that, but it's gotten to a point where I don't know how to be understanding and empathetic, but say, no, this has to change. So I want to tell them, either you have to do better, you need to start paying me more money, or I can help you find a new place to live. And I don't want that to come across as too hostile, aggressive. I'll even give them some of the furniture that I bought for their room. It's a furnished room, by the way. But I would prefer that they don't go anywhere. I don't want our friendship to be hurt. I just want things to get better. And I would love your insight.
Okay. So what you're saying is what I would tell is how I would say it to her. It doesn't sound bitchy. It doesn't sound angry. I mean, you sound a little bit like jacked up, but if you just, come from a place of emotional neutrality. And so how do you get to that place? We have to have some quiet time, whether that's just 5 minutes of just deep breathing, meditation, or what have you, just to remember that you care about this person, which I think is right there at the surface. And then that will help your delivery, because I like your delivery, actually. Like, things have to change. This isn't working out for me. I want to help you, but I also need help from you. So this is a two-way street here. And I can't live in an environment that has this mess all the time. So we can come up with a solution, either a cleaning schedule where I know that these are the days that you're going to do, a deep cleaning for your pet and yourself, or, and I have to raise the rent, because if you raise the rent on her, is that really going to and they still keep a messy house, is that higher rent really going to help you feel better? So that's what you have to ask yourself.
Yeah, I was also going to say that the increased rent, and it would be a notable increase in terms of percentage, but still cheap, relatively speaking, would go towards hiring a cleaner. And I've actually had to hire a cleaner twice. The first time I covered it because I wanted to. The second time I told my friend, I need you to pitch in for this. And we delayed it for a while because this friend kept saying, no, I'll do better. And then doesn't. So It's one of those things where I'm really running out of patience and starting to we've snapped at each other recently is the best way to put it.
Right. So instead of more snapping at each other, is you need to get to a place where you are more grounded, but then you still talk about it. So it's not like I'm going to feel better and then everything's going to work out better because now I feel better about it. You have to get to a place where you're emotionally close to neutral, even though I know it's hard right now. Just get grounded. And I'll help you. Like, the next exercise we're going to do kind of helps with that. And then you have let's sit down and have this conversation. And I need to have some real solutions. And and you can even say, like, okay, if things aren't better within, 30 days or, 2 weeks, whatever your timeline is, then the ultimatum could be like, then, we might need to find, you might need to find a different place to live. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And I'm definitely going to emphasize that no matter what, I'm still your friend. But
Yeah.
something needs to change. It's no hard feelings. We just don't need to be roommates anymore. This friend
Right,
is also, I'm very aware of the fact that this friend's in a bit of a financial pickle, and I've avoided a lot of this partially because I'm aware of the power differential. I don't
Yeah.
want to be the landlord. So,
Right.
but it's kind of turning into a point where I need to be.
Well, yeah, because this is your home too. It's not like you're a landlord who lives in a different city. You're living right there. That's why I would, one of the things I would emphasize is like, she needs to help out because it's helping you out. So it's a much more reciprocal relationship, as reciprocal as it can be. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
And,
Any other question? Oh, yes.
oh yes. I would also like to add too that, her showing value and respect for the space also in turn shows the self-value for her and also you. So if you maybe say it in a nice way, like, hey, doing this would help, show that you do value that I am being able to help you out here. Just throwing that out there.
Right. Okay. So I think what you're saying, Elizabeth, is if their roommate is, takes on responsibility for the household, for managing the household, it's showing, who was the caller that, Christina, was that?
It was
Ollie.
Ollie, thank you. Thank you.
Ollie, yeah. It would show that she cares about Ollie. So that could be thrown in there as well. Like when you're doing these things for me, then I know that you care about me because this is my living space as well. So that would be something to add into that conversation. But otherwise, yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions or comments? We're good? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to go into this meditative exercise. If you're driving, don't close your eyes, obviously. But otherwise, if you can, I do invite you right now to close your eyes. And let's start with 5 intentional grounding breaths, where each exhale takes 6 seconds to release, where you take 6 seconds for each exhale. The slowing down of the exhale engages the parasympathetic nervous system, which is that soothing, calming side of our nervous system. And I'm just going to be reading off of my notes, but go ahead and just start with your intentional breathing. And keeping your eyes closed, I invite you now to bring up the idea of setting a boundary with someone or something difficult. And when you bring up the idea of that, notice how your body reacts. And notice where you feel that reaction. Wherever you feel that reaction, we're going to spend some time in this area. The physical sensation of the idea of setting a difficult boundary. Take notice of it. Notice if there's a particular shape, texture, color, or temperature to this sensation. Does it feel heavy or tight, buzzy, jagged? Does it feel hot or cold? Just take notice of that. That's all you're doing. We're not trying to change anything. We're just noticing. Excuse me. And what I want you to do now is to intentionally breathe into those sensations, as if you're intentionally blowing air into that part of your body that's having this reaction. And just do that for a few moments. And now take notice if anything has changed with those sensations. Do they feel more intense? Do they feel the same? Or do they feel a little lighter? Is there a little more space around them? And now I want you to notice if there are any emotions behind those sensations in your body. Is there any guilt or resentment, anger or sadness, or a mixture of several emotions around the idea of setting a difficult boundary? And just take notice of what those emotions might be. And now I invite you to do some intentional breathing into those emotions, just for a few moments. And now notice if anything has changed or shifted with your emotions. Do the emotions feel stronger, the same, or a little lighter? And just take notice of that. And now we're going to go a little bit deeper, noticing the sensations, the physical sensations, and the emotions around the idea of setting up a difficult boundary. With curious compassion, I wonder, and I ask you to wonder, is there a memory or a cluster of memories or a negative belief about yourself associated with these feelings and sensations? And if there is, how young or how old does this part of you feel? It might be your current age. It might be a part of you from 20 years ago or from childhood. And I wonder if you can see this part of you with eyes of compassion for what they went through, for their needs not getting met. For not being heard or understood. Honing in on this other part of you, young or old. Maybe it's a teen part, an adolescent. Imagine approaching this part of you a little bit closer. Do they have a message for you? What is it that they want to say or tell you? Just notice. Don't try to change or argue or anything. Just notice, just listen to the message. And I wonder if you can see this part of you with eyes of compassion, acknowledging their pain, and acknowledging their experience. And if you can see them with eyes of compassion, what do you notice now in your body? What do you notice with those original sensations and emotions? And just take notice. And now I invite you to imagine that the energy from your heart is flowing to the heart of this other part of you. And then flowing back to your heart, almost like an infinity 8. The energy from your heart flows to their heart and then back to your heart. And just do this for a few moments. And take a nice big deep breath in. And take notice now of what your body feels like, this part of you, and what your emotions feel like. And now I ask you to offer something to this other part of you. Offer this other part of you an intention of protection and nurturing. And if you don't know how, your intention to them is to learn how. You can say to them, I don't know quite how to set this boundary, but I'm going to learn how. And I'm going to ask for the courage to do it because I care about you. And as you're having this conversation with this part of you, this other part of you, just notice how it feels in your body when this other part of you is being acknowledged by you. How is your body reacting? And how are your emotions? What are you noticing about your emotions? And I wonder now if there might be a positive I statement that you can say to this other part of you. Something short and simple like, we are safe now. We will be okay. We are enough. We are lovable. And if that doesn't feel true, then start the sentence with what if? What if we are enough? What if we are lovable? What if it's okay to be seen authentically? And when you put the what if in front of the statement, just notice how that feels in your body. And as we come to the end of this exercise, please take a moment to thank this other part of you for sending you the message and communicating with you what they need. And whenever you're ready, take a nice big deep breath in and slowly release. And then slowly open your eyes and come back. Thank you, everybody, for doing that with me. That I call the clearing exercise. And that exercise is actually found in my newly released book, Love What Hurts. Are there any questions about that exercise or about anything that I talked about tonight? And I'd love to know how that exercise, how you guys did with the exercise.
Yes, thank you so much. That exercise was very powerful. I know for me, and I'm sure for our other guests that are attending here and will also watch on the replay. Thank you so much. I think Becky might have something to share. Becky?
Oh, I unmuted. This is something we can, because it's just it takes practice, right? I mean,
Yes,
kind of
absolutely.
practice. It was hard for
Yes.
me to kind of, sometimes my head's all over the place, but I think if I
Right.
do it over and over, you know, practice
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
I'll be able to focus in on it more.
Mhm.
Maybe.
Absolutely, 100%. The more you practice this exercise, the easier it gets to tap into that place within us that doesn't feel like we're enough
Right.
or that we're, lovable or that we're worthy outside of our overdoing-itis. So the more you practice, the easier it gets to hone in on that. So,
Right.
yep. Thank you, Becky.
Good. Yeah.
Good to see you.
You too.
Yeah, that was a great question, Becky. Thank you. And
Thanks.
yeah, because it definitely takes practice, diving into, that meditative state and
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. And you can watch on Facebook if you got the Facebook Live. It's on our Federal Way Facebook page. And it will be on our YouTube channel shortly later. So I'll put that information in the chat box for you.
Perfect. Nice.
And yes. And Jenny, do you have any questions? Okay, maybe not. I'm gonna check Facebook Live here.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but thank you. It was a wonderful practice. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It was really helpful. I'm currently kind of teaching my children some of these tools, so I appreciate I do quantum healing myself. Elizabeth, I know you because I work at the Federal Way store. Hi. Oh, sorry, I'm not so good with Zoom, so I don't even know how to put myself on the camera. But anyway, um, but it's very helpful because, I've noticed a lot of people around me kind of going through boundary setting right now, and with a lot of family members, and I feel like I have a lot of training in that area, but it seems like more and more people are needing that support, and the different tools and things, so it's really helpful to find different resources and stuff for everybody. Yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are going through a lot of things right now, and the financial things too that people are going through, and just really, I think that it's really important to teach your children that too, to do the boundary setting. And I mean, we all have it in many different ways that we're dealing with it with many different friends and family and stuff, like you said. But I'm pretty good at doing it for myself, but it's just really important to be able to teach it to other people too, I was
Right.
out grounding and meditating today on my day off. And, I use these tools, like you're saying, but it's really empowering and aligning for everyone to just really, be able to go to these tools on their own and know that they have those resources,
100%. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes. And the more that we can encourage each other to develop and set boundaries, the more that it'll happen. So by doing it ourselves and then encouraging, our chosen tribe to do it for themselves, including our children. Like nobody gets to touch our children unless they give them permission to, right?
Exactly.
Even if it's, grandma wants to come and give you a big hug, but you don't want that big hug, the child gets to choose.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All the time. It doesn't matter. I know grandma loves you, but the child, and so when we start in childhood, it's a lot easier to be consistent with boundaries as we go into adulthood.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the more that we cheerlead each other on, if you know that your friend went to work sick, say, do not go to work sick. You stay home and take
Right.
care of yourself, and I'll bring you some hot soup. They can live without you for a couple days,
Exactly.
right?
Right. Yeah.
And hopefully after experiencing a pandemic, none of us are going to work sick anymore. My good. Yeah. So the more that we do it and encourage our tribe to do it, our chosen tribe or family members to do it, it'll get easier, easier and easier to do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think women, when we lift each other up, we are so powerful and so loving. It's just, it's huge energy. It's huge energy.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we can embody that and set our boundaries, we're showing them, through our example, these ways that a lot of the time, a lot of people didn't, because we're just showing it through our examples of being able to do that, and
Right.
and it's easier for other people then, to feel that they can do it too,
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And, if you come across somebody, or if you are that somebody who, you do this exercise, the clearing exercise over and over again, but you still feel too paralyzed to set that boundary with that toxic person, then you really should go to a therapist of some sort or an energy healer to
Right.
access, those old wounds or old trauma wounds, right? To really help you heal from that so that you can so that it's easier to set that boundary. And the clearing exercise that we just did is an introduction to befriending those wounded parts of us.
Beautiful.
Right? And holding those parts of us with compassion, as if you're holding a child who's been hurt and wounded, right? And if you have a hard time finding compassion for yourself, just imagine that you are holding compassion for your best friend, someone you have unconditional love for.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I actually just had that same conversation with my best friend, and my voice of reason, my inner critic, I've been trying to shift it as if she were talking to me, and when I told her that, she goes, "Aw, well, gosh, I'm gonna start doing that now too. I love that."
right. Yeah, we are so critical of ourselves. If we could start talking to ourselves as if we're talking to our best friend, as if we're talking to, the person that our favorite person, right? Then setting boundaries becomes a lot easier.
Exactly, because we know that if our best friend was, in a situation, we'd be like, "Oh, heck no."
That's right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But when it happens to us, we're like, "Oh, well, maybe it was because this, that, and the other thing happened," or,
Oh gosh.
right? Yeah. So
Right.
that has been a new thing for me that I've been trying, and I'm super grateful that you brought that up. So thank you.
Yes, because back to the objective of this class was we don't want to get sick or stay sick, and if we're chronically ill, then we definitely can't help anybody.
No.
Right?
Exactly.
So it's not just protecting our mental health, it's protecting our overall health, establishing boundaries.
Very true. Aww. Lisha, you are such a treat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for having me.
Of course, anytime. We would be honored to have you back anytime.
I would love to come back. Yeah, this was fun.
This was wonderful.
It really was.
Oh, good. Thank you, Becky.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jenny.
know. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to get your book. It looks so wonderful.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you can order from your favorite online retailer, or
Okay,
if you order from me directly, you'll get a couple of guided meditations. That clearing exercise is one of those,
Ooh,
and crystal
how beautiful.
intuitively chosen for you. So
I love that. That's beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
oh, there you go, folks. I think I put that link. Yes, I did put it in the meeting chat to Lisha's website there, and you can order it. They can order it straight through that link, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
wonderful.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know I'm definitely gonna want to copy it myself too.
I like to have a library. I'm building a library of, you know, as a therapist myself, it's nice to have different resources to share with people, you know, because
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Especially
Especially
local ones.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. I love it. You guys are both good resources to me. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Oh, thanks, Jenny, and
Thank
thank you,
you.
Becky, for being here both, and everyone that was on the call before too. We appreciate you, and everyone who's watching Facebook Live. We wouldn't have been able to put on these wonderful classes without our wonderful customers and followers just loving what we do. So thank you.
Mhm.
Mhm. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
No,
you, guys.
thank you
Take
so much,
care.
everyone. Take good
Thank you for being
care.
here.